can't get away from crime. Since unfortunately it's a part of society, right? But you can learn how to mitigate it, manage it, right, and navigate it, I should say.
Yeah.
And so it's all part of the planning process, I think.
Yeah.
No, don't go on there blind though. Don't go on there and just say you're going to figure out the night that you're drinking. Now you need to figure out what's going on. You're not thinking clearly, right? Because you're you're intoxicated, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest thing I would encourage people to do. Go to the actual campus police station and ask them, hey, what services are available? What do you provide? What can I do if this happens or whatever, right? And they'll bring out the whole list because that's their job is that campus.
That's Officer Jill, just in time for back to school season. On this episode, we have a special conversation as we talk about the unique college experience of attending an HBCU. In her case, Howard University. And then we transition to a discussion about law enforcement and personal safety. We also chat about her podcast, The Human Side with Officer Jill, where she aims to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community. This is the Academic Survival Podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Chandra McDonald. Statistics show that approximately 40% of students drop out of college every year. In fact, nearly 30% drop out their first year. Well, I am on a mission to improve these stats. Welcome to the Academic Survival Podcast. Today I have with me Officer Jill. Hey, Jill, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Hello.
Hey, I am so excited to have you here today. We're going to get into, oh my gosh, so much stuff. We're going to talk about law enforcement, and we're also going to talk about HBCUs. So I feel like I get a twofer out of you.
Yes, I'm excited. It's two things that I love and have contributed a lot to who I am. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Yay. All right, so let's start off with, what college did you attend and where is it located?
Okay, so I have to preface. I attended two colleges, right? But
okay.
One I love. There's a different place in my heart for each one. So and I'll explain a little later why this happened. But
absolutely,
I attended two colleges. I went to a junior college, and then I attended the Grand Ole Howard University in Washington, D.C., the original HU. I just want to make that very clear.
The original HU. I love it. So you started off at City College and then you ended up in Washington, D.C. Like, what made you leave California for the East Coast?
You know what? It's really weird. I am definitely a fun in the sun type of gal, and it's a different climate there. But I also love the cold weather. I love the cold weather. And ultimately, it's always been a dream of mine to go to a historical Black college. It's something that I've always seen as very prestigious, right? You grew up watching The Cosby Show, right? And you saw Felicia Rashad and Bill Cosby wearing the Howard sweaters, and they were doctors, right? So, and even A Different World, right? Where they're wearing all the historic Black college sweaters. And it's always been something I've always been amazed at and wanted to kind of be a part of.
So then when you showed up at Howard University, I guess you had already declared a major by then, or?
Yeah. So I've always wanted to be a police officer my entire life. I can very vividly remember back in the third grade when I fell in love with policing. The DARE program. You remember the DARE program back then? I might be aging myself a bit here. But the DARE program in the sheriff's department, they came to my school, and I fell in love in the third grade with policing. And from then I wanted to be a police officer, right? And so I knew that, and I always been taught, you go to school first, right? Before you get that career, you go to college first, right? Which I'm glad that I did. So obviously I already had a criminal justice, or actually it was called administration of justice at Howard University mindset before I went there. And that's what they offered. And
as you transitioned from City College and then ended up at Howard University, now you're at a predominantly Black university. So tell me a little bit about that community. Like, how would you describe the sense of community and the support at Howard University.
Yes, we talk about this a lot with other alumni from HBCUs, and it's really hard to describe it, but I'll try. For me, I didn't grow up with a lot of folks that look like me. I grew up in a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, which is fine. It's great because I think it gave me an opportunity to see other cultures and experience other cultures. And so going to Howard University and walking on campus and seeing people that look like you that were there for such a positive reason, it's inspiring. It was so inspiring seeing that. You know, it wasn't something I was used to. I was always the only one Black girl, the second only Black student, right? In every class that, or any setting, any community setting, I was always the only Black person, or maybe two or three other additional, right? So to go to a school where 80% of the students look like you, you know, and 80% of the instructors, the professors look like you, right? The buildings are named by people, are named of people who look like you. It's very inspiring. It's very encouraging, and kind of a bit of a culture shock, if I'm honest. It was a culture shock for me.
In what way?
Like I said, just like I wasn't used to it. I guess that's just, it wasn't a bad culture shock. It was more so like I just wasn't accustomed to it. I wasn't used to it. Right. And so you have to kind of adjust, if you will. It was a good adjustment.
Yeah, that's a good adjustment. And I just can imagine, like, just knowing that there's just certain things you don't have to explain.
Yeah.
Certain things that you don't have to, you know, whether it's from hair to.
Yes. Yes. No one's asking to touch your hair, right?
And then just like knowing that if you didn't do well, that it's not attributed to your race, because like
everyone's
not,
the same,
right?
Yeah, exactly. That's all. Yeah, I agree 100%. It was just very encouraging. I guess that's all I can really say. It's hard to put it into words, and I think we struggle describing it because it's something very internal, you know?
Yeah.
You just feel it, you know?
One of the things that I've noticed from the people that I have encountered that graduated from HBCUs, I just kind of felt like they just move differently. I feel like they just have a different sense of knowing who they are, and just a greater sense of like, I'm unstoppable. Like, that's the thing that I noticed. And I think, like, I think maybe even part of that is that because when your education, you're not battling the other things that are microaggressions or just anything that's like could creep in to make you feel like I'm inferior, I'm not worthy, I don't belong here. Like, none of that. You're not battling that along with trying to learn.
Right. And absolutely.
Yeah. So then being at an HBCU, you know, there's obviously traditions at all universities, but are there any specific traditions that you felt like were unique to Howard University or unique to being at an HBCU?
Oh, absolutely. You say that and it takes me back to my very first football game, right? I think football games on every campus are fun, right? We enjoy them. It's a good time for everyone to come together and have a good time. But for Howard, as far as Howard University, and I think all HBCUs do this, I will never forget, we're sitting in the stands and the game's about to start. And first they play the National Black Anthem, right? And as they play the National Black Anthem, every single fist in the crowd goes up in the air, right?
Yeah.
And if you're, and it's not, well, I mean, I guess it's associated to Black Power, but it's also a sense of camaraderie, right? And togetherness. And I remember looking around because it's my first time at the game and I don't know what's going on. I look around, I'm like, oh my goodness. And I put my fist in the air and we're singing, and you can literally I get goosebumps even with the American National Anthem. I just love that sense of pride and patriotism. And then it also, got that same feeling when I was experiencing that. And so I think that's probably, for me, that's one of the biggest traditions that I will never forget. Obviously there are others and that you can't deny, like homecoming.
Okay.
The homecoming experience at a HBCU is unforgettable. unmatched. Okay. It is absolutely unmatched. All the different events that are going on, the bands, the Battle of the Bands.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an amazing experience. And then you have just like, and if outside of like your, I guess, grand events like homecoming or football game, you have a basic Wednesday where people are meeting on the yard, right? They're just
Okay.
midday. Yeah, I know you're like, what is that? If you go to Howard, you know what that is. That's just basically like midday lunch after class, and everyone just comes to the middle of the campus, this grassy
Uh-huh.
area, and you're just hanging out and you're talking, you're eating, you're doing whatever you're doing. And it's like, and it's usually when the fraternities and the sororities come out, and that's when you
Oh,
find out who's pledging, who's not, and just stuff like that. It's just
yeah.
I wasn't a part of the whole fraternity sorority thing. Wasn't my thing,
Uh-huh.
but it's
Uh-huh.
obviously it's huge on especially at Howard's campus, because it's where a lot of the black sororities and fraternities originated. So you can
Mm-hmm.
imagine the kind of impact they have on the campus.
Absolutely. So I imagine that there must have been even an extra sense of pride when knowing that our vice president came from Howard
Yes,
University.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, look, she's the first female, right,
Mm-hmm.
in that position of authority in our entire country. Right. So obviously, you cannot be proud, no matter where you stand politically, whether you agree with what she does or doesn't. That's a pretty big accomplishment. And to know that
Yeah,
someone who went to Howard University accomplished that, I can't knock it. I applaud it. Right. I applaud it for sure. I would love to sit down and
absolutely.
talk with her. We could talk about some things, but talk
Yeah,
about a
put
couple
on
of. Go
your
ahead.
officer
Yeah.
Geo conversations.
Yes, there's some things I have some questions I have for her, but
So
I applaud her accomplishment 100%.
so as far as like your any like challenges or growth, like what were some of the challenges you faced while attending Howard and how did you overcome them?
You know, I think for me, one, like I said, it wasn't a negative challenge, but it was an adjustment to be around people like that look like me, just because I wasn't used to it, right? So it had to, and I it kind of sounds like I don't know how to act around black folks, but I do. But no, it just was an adjustment, just seeing everyone that looked like you. I think they're challenges the same that you have at any college, to be honest with you. Just trying to manage your time, right? Because
Okay. Okay.
of it's a bit of a party school. I'll be honest. It's a bit of a party school, but one thing is that I think that is big about Howard is that it's big education wise. Like you have, let's say, people are going out, but they're in class the next day. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like there's a commitment to pursuing success, right? And then they also
Yeah.
have to learn that balance of having a good time, right? Enjoying yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Making friends, right? Meeting new people in all these different settings. So I think for me, I would say it's probably the same on most campuses where you're trying to learn how to manage your time and enjoy the experience at
Okay.
the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's pretty much your general college experience,
Yeah.
right? So, okay.
Yeah.
With you deciding to go into law enforcement and knowing from, a very young age that I want to be, a law enforcement officer,
Yeah.
was there any law enforcement like preparation? I don't know, like I guess what I'm asking is like we know that there are tough conversations to be had between law enforcement and specifically the black community. So was that part of your education, law enforcement, black community? Did you experience anything that would address that dynamic or that intersectionality?
You mean at Howard? Do you think there's something
Yes.
contribute to?
Like, was there anything that could have shaped you professionally in that regard?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, back in February, I was asked to speak on this panel at a high school. And it was basically kind of not the comparison, but explaining the differences between a HBCU and a
PWI?
PWI, right? A predominantly white institute versus a historic black or HBCU, right? So, and they asked this question, if has me attending HBCU contributed to, my job, right? And has it
Mm-hmm.
influenced? And one thing I can say unequivocally is absolutely yes. When you go to a school like Howard, and like I mentioned before, the buildings, the classroom buildings, the administrative building, everything is named after these change makers in history, right? Big contributors to the things that we as Black people get to enjoy now, right? Certain rights that were not available then, right? They contributed to that. And we also know that the history of law enforcement and the Black community is not good, right? It hasn't, the history of it just isn't. It is what it is. Right. We can't deny it. It happened. And so going to Howard really encouraged me to continue to pursue this career in law enforcement so that I can also be some sort of change maker in the right direction when it comes to improving the relationship between law enforcement and the community. So yeah, it was a huge contributor to me staying focused and following the path to being a police officer, which it was a little shaky getting here, I'll be honest. But
how so?
So after graduating after college, it took me about 2 years to get hired after college, right? I have my degree in administration of justice. Because this always was the plan, I was a law-abiding citizen, right? I was living a life that ensured that I,
Wait, I have a quick story. Living a life as a law-abiding citizen. Like, I'm going to get back to this, but let me tell you.
Go for it.
I had a class. I was a criminal justice major. And I had a class where during the summer, we visited correctional facilities.
Okay.
So we went to Chino. We went to Terminal Island.
Oh, wow.
We went to Sybil Brand. Like, if you remember that, that's like, now you thought you were dating yourself. Yes. Now I'm dating myself.
You went way back, Sybil Brand.
Sybil Brand. Okay, how about this? California Youth Authority went there.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So we visited all these places. But before you visit, part of the registering for the class is you have to sign up and they got to do a background check on you before you can even go on this field trip, because they're going to literally let you into the facilities. Like, literally we ate with inmates.
Wow.
You're going to be in the facilities, right?
What an experience.
And so I know it was a really good experience. Oh, even Los Padrinos. Is Los Padrinos still open? Okay.
Kind of. Yes. No. Okay. there's a lot of issues going on with our youth authority right now. Okay. A whole lot of issues.
So one of my classmates who wanted to attend the summer school session, I overheard the professor let him know, like, you ain't passed the background check. Like, they ain't gonna let you in. Like, I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know if he had outstanding tickets or what the deal was, but they were like, the professor was like, you can't come on this.
Oh, wow.
Field trip. So that speaks to, like, if you want to go into law enforcement, please be a law-abiding citizen. You do have to have a background check.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
So as you were saying, you were a law-abiding citizen, but it took you 2 years to come on board.
Did.
So continue there.
It did. Like I said, I knew what I wanted to do. So I was doing things that wouldn't prevent me from passing a background check, right? I will say now, some say, well, that wasn't law-abiding. I'll tell you guys what happened. I have no problem, because I mentioned this on my background. It wasn't something that I lied about. I didn't drink often. I didn't do drugs, right? For obvious reasons. I can probably count on one hand how many times I've been drunk, right? So like I said, I was pursuing this life. And so when I graduated college, I started the process of applying to a bunch of different agencies. And the first agency that I applied to was in Orange County.
Orange County, California?
Orange County, California, yes. I applied and I didn't get through the first screening page. So before you even can take the test, they give you like a paper that has a bunch, maybe about 10, 12 questions of just basic stuff, right? Have you committed a felony? Do you do drugs, right? Now, this was before marijuana was recreational.
Legal.
Right? Before it was legal. And so one of the questions they ask is, have you ever, consumed drugs, right? If you have, when, how did you do it? And I put in yes, but let me explain why. Okay. I need to be very clear. Okay. Let me preface, I don't get people in trouble, but let's just say this. I literally tasted like a pinch, no bigger than a nail size of a homemade weed brownie in college, right? And that was my experience. That was my experience with drugs, like legit. That was my experience with drugs. Okay. And because I knew I didn't do drugs, I put it down there. I was honest, right? I
Yeah.
put it on
Uh-huh.
there. And when they saw that, they said, "Oh, you've used drugs. Come back in 2 years."
Oh, wow.
That's what they told me. And talk about crushing, right? I was like, "What? I don't
Oh.
do drugs. I don't smoke weed. Like, I don't even use foul language, right? That's how anyone knows me. I don't even use curse words. If you catch me using a curse word, then you caught me really in a bad time, right? You pushed me to the limit. But I was devastated. But I did continue to apply to other agencies, and I found that that one disqualification. The thing about policing, of course, they share information, right, when it comes to hiring,
Mm,
because they want to make sure they get the right candidate in there
right.
that they can trust, right? You have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
responsibility as a police officer, and so it kind of followed me, right? And so,
Mm.
and and I'm not gonna lie, I got discouraged along the way, but thank God, 2 years later, essentially, police department in LA was able to see that, hey, you know what? This is good. This is a good
She
candidate
can
here.
make a difference.
Right, exactly. And
We
you
need her
know,
on our team.
right. And they hired me. But it was a long 2 years, but it was also a learning and a development. I will say that it was a development process for me, for sure. Those 2 years. I am a woman of faith, and I believe that God used those 2 years to really and truly prepare me mentally and emotionally for the job that I had to take on. So
Wow, that's a long time.
yeah.
And it also sounds like you went from California to DC
Hmm.
and then back to California.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of times when people go out of state for school, they don't come back home.
Yeah,
And you did.
I did, and it wasn't because I didn't like DC. I actually loved it in DC. I really did, and I mean, like I said, I think that I am where I'm supposed to be right now in this day and age. But I do look back and I'm like, man, I should have applied for the agencies in DC. I did
Mm.
it, but it is what it is. I think everything worked out the way it's supposed to work out. But I loved it in DC. It's just DC is a great place to be. It really is. It really is.
It's a whole different energy. Just
Yeah.
the historical.
Yeah.
It just feels like you're just walking through history when you're
Yes.
there. That's how I feel when I'm
That's a
there.
great way. That is a great way to put it. And you're absolutely right. I will say though, Howard has changed. The surrounding area when I went there, I'll just keep it real. The surrounding area around Howard was hood. It was not the best neighborhood at all. At all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now it has been gentrified, y'all.
That's a thing now. That's a thing now because I remember USC used to be that way too, right?
Yes.
Neighborhood
Yes.
around USC.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's all right. It made me tough though.
So, as a Black woman and a law enforcement officer, how do you navigate the complexities and like potential conflicts that arise from these intersecting identities?
Ooh, that's a good question. How do I navigate that? I have learned to navigate well. I will be honest, earlier in my career, it was a challenge. It really was.
With being a woman or being a Black woman? Because like
Being a
you're also
Black
like in
woman.
a male dominated.
Yes.
You've got all this
Yes.
going on.
Yes.
Okay.
And they both add challenges, right? They
Mhm.
both and they're slightly different, right? They're slightly different but the same because obviously one's race and one isn't. Yeah, you as a woman, you are, and we talk about this all the time as women in law enforcement. It is a male dominant role, and so there's always going to be, you're always in that. Like, for example, let's say there's a specialized unit within the police
Mhm.
department, and there will always only be, it's like this unwritten rule. There's always only one female in that unit.
Oh
It's
wow.
Yeah, it's weird. It's this weirdest thing. Like you'll always see. Let's say if there's 10 people in the unit, you're gonna see 9 men and one woman.
Mm.
Right? Which is challenging. It's very rare to see multiple women in one type of specialized unit. So there are some
Yeah.
similarities where you're I don't say the oddball, but you're kind of just that, I don't want to say token because token means that you didn't earn it, right?
Right.
But yeah, there's that correlation, I should say.
Yeah.
But then it gets, I would say, for a Black female early in my career, and I remember actually in the academy, I'll never forget this. Just before the academy, before you go in, you go to like this orientation, right? And they encourage you to bring your families, where they explain kind of what to expect, right? And
Okay.
ways in which your family can contribute to you being successful in the academy, right? Because it's a 6 month for us. It's 6 months, and it's rigorous, right? It can be very mentally taxing, right? And so they
Okay.
explain all these things to you. And I remember it was over, and my sister came with me. And we went over to one of the instructors, and we just kind of asked her, "Hey, what advice would you give me?" Meaning my sister said, "What advice would you give Jill? Just moving forward." And it was just very general. And but I appreciate her for recognizing that I'm a Black female here, right? She wasn't Black either, but she said, "Listen, I want you to listen to me. It's gonna be challenges where you guys are gonna see her change a bit, right? You're gonna see a shift in the way that she thinks and the things that she does that may seem odd." And I took it as she was speaking to, it's going to be hard being a Black person in uniform in Los Angeles, right? And she said, "You know what, but you'll also see that as she learns and she develops, she's going to get more and more comfortable within her skin and her uniform, and you'll see the transition back to her being normal."
Oh.
And I can tell you, I 1,000,000%. I didn't know what she was talking about. That fully know what she meant, but as I lived it, I will say the first maybe 4 or 5 years, it was challenging because people would question my Blackness.
Yeah.
I'll just be
And
honest. They'll question my Blackness. They'll say I sold out to the man, right? And I had my partner. He was actually my classmate, and he was a Black male. So you can imagine we would get it like crazy from our quote unquote own people, right?
yeah.
And you learn how to, I guess, accept it. I guess I don't know, but I don't know if I want to use that word accept. You just learn how to cope with it and manage it, and then you get to the point where you're comfortable. You can actually engage and explain things like, "Hey, look, what's wrong with me being in this position? Yes, I know what this uniform and this badge may represent to you because of the history, but let me tell you what it really is, right? Let me tell you what it's really like. And I'm here because I want to make sure that history doesn't repeat itself, right? One of the reasons, right?
Yeah.
And so it was challenging at first, but I definitely, as I got more comfortable and just kind of engaged and didn't run from those conversations with people who questioned my Blackness, and I can have that intelligent conversation, is definitely, I became more okay with it, I guess. More
Yeah.
comfortable with it, if that kind of answered your question.
Absolutely. So, what was your reaction last week when, because I'm assuming you saw the video of the previous president getting shot.
Yes.
What was your reaction to the number of women who were on that Secret Service detail?
You know what? I didn't know how many women. Was there an extreme amount, or was there an excessive amount?
I saw a woman helping him down the stairs.
I did see that.
When they were putting him in the car, I saw the same woman, but then I saw another woman next to her, and then another. I was like, he has a lot of women on his detail.
You know what? To be honest, I don't think I noticed. Well, I did. Now that you think about it, and I'm actually replaying what I saw. I probably did see more than you would normally see.
Yeah.
I do remember seeing a clip of someone. I don't know who the guy was, but I think one of the first things he said was that this was a result of a DEI situation, right? I was like, really? Are you kidding me? The fact that someone who was suffering from mental illness, basically, right, who was bullied and whatnot, decided to do this has nothing to do with, women being hired. I mean, I'll tell you this. I may be biased in saying this. What I have found now, no shade to all my men law enforcement. I appreciate you. I know that there's a difference in our physical bodies, so I appreciate working with men, right? Because there are definitely some parts in this profession where having that physical strength is going to make a difference, right? You could be fighting for your life, and I'd rather be fighting with a 6'7" man, right, than a 4'5", 80-pound woman. I'm just gonna keep it real, right? There's
Right.
just differences. However, I will say that I have also seen that women, one of the benefits of having a women officer is that we are really, really, really good communicators.
Thought you were going to say something else.
What did you think I was gonna say?
I thought you were going to talk about marksmanship. I thought you said we are really
that
good
too.
shooters.
We are. No, that too. That's also, and maybe I'm thinking more on a local level as far as policing, right? Where being able to communicate with people is huge, right? You're not doing too much sniper shooting when it comes to local law enforcement, right? But no, you're right. You're absolutely right. And that's actually what they told us in the academy, that women tend to be the better shooters. We have a more steady hand. And that's another benefit, right? So to say that, or to question the fact that there were women, Secret Service officers, and this happened, I don't think it's fair, right? I think it's an unfortunate thing that happened. It should have never happened. No matter where you stand with Trump or Biden, it's not okay to take a shot, a literal shot at any political candidate for any reason. So, but yeah, hey, people are going to say that. You're always going to get that, oh, it was a woman. There's always, in this law enforcement community, unfortunately, there's going to be kind of a negative, shadow over women, that it's not a woman's job. You shouldn't be doing this. But I think a lot of us women are proven otherwise.
That's right. So the whole history of HBCUs, one of the things is that I always hear is that the network is phenomenal. Yeah. Like, you go to this school, you establish these bonds, and they're like lifelong bonds. Yeah. How was the network and connections you made at Howard University helped you in your career, if at all, considering that you left DC and ended up in California?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that you pick up on whenever you find that someone went to Howard. You're like, oh, you went to Howard, and you do the bison, and they finish it with a right? That's the official bison call, right?
Okay.
So you just have like that camaraderie. I can't say that I have. Well, I take that back. I have met people that were not in my class, right? May not have been in my class, but once you find out that you went to the same school, you're like, hey, what do you do? How can I be of assistance? Some kind of, any kind of way. A friend of mine who works in entertainment, right? And I have a podcast. He kind of gives me advice and things of what to do and things like that. And so there is a natural kind of camaraderie that comes with that when you find that someone works or someone went to the same school. I don't think it's any different than anything. Well, I don't even want to say that. Yeah, I think it is it has a little heightened height to it, right? Because it is a HBCU. You just kind of have that special bond and that vibe. Like, hey, you went here. What are you doing? What, how can I help you progress and be a change maker or a success or contribute to society in a positive way?
That's good. That's good to have those types of connections.
Yeah.
So then why do you think it's important for students to consider attending an HBCU?
Well, I think it varies, if I would say, and because it is a historical Black college, I think if you are a African American, if you are Black, you will have an experience that you may not have at a predominantly white school. I'll just be honest. It's going to be very different in the sense that some of the things I described, you're surrounded by people who look like you, right? You're being taught by people who look like you. Not only, some of the professors are also, not Black as well, but you're surrounded by buildings of change makers, and not to also mention this, find a way to integrate Black culture into the teaching.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so you get some of that, which you probably aren't going to get at a predominantly white school.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as integrating part of that into the teaching, I remember I took a lot of Black Studies classes I went to Cal State Long Beach, who had a very strong Black Studies department. And I took a Black Studies class, but it was an English class. So instead of like English 100 or English 101, I took my English class in the Black Studies department. So you're literally like reading Black literature as part of the books that you're assigned. I remember reading the autobiography of Assata Shakur, which I know I never would have been assigned that just in a regular English class. So that was a way of just integrating our cultural experiences, our historical experiences into the coursework.
Yes, absolutely. And that makes it's like double, right? you're getting the best of both worlds. You're learning, right? But you're also getting some of that culture into you too that you more than likely would not be exposed to at a different college. So that's what I would encourage anyone who's and like I said at the panel when I spoke at the high school, if ultimately when you're thinking about what college you want to attend, ultimately choose the one that fits your circumstance and what you're trying to accomplish best, obviously, right?
Mhm.
Make sure they have your major. You don't want to go to a school that has your major, no matter what they are,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's HBCU or not.
Yes,
They're not
yes.
offering your major. Why are you going there?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But so yeah, find something that fits what you have going. However, if an HBCU fits your situation, I would absolutely consider it because it's just an amazing experience. There's been so many notable contributors to society who have attended Howard University. You have the Andrew Young, right? You have Elijah Cummings, right? Even going to the entertainment world, Felicia Rashad, the Black Panther, right? I don't call the Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, right? So many, so many notable people, and I have yet to come across anyone who has attended Howard and has said, I would say, with the exception of they may have some admin problems as far as the paperwork sometimes get lost. With the exception of that, I haven't heard anyone actually speak bad of the experience and the education and just the full, I guess, progression of the culture and being put into you. I speak very highly of it. I wish I would have been able to go the full 4 years, but the 2 years was, oh my God, it was a great 2 years to attend. And I saved some money.
But yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. And you still get to be an alumni, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
With your the Mecca hat
the
on.
The Mecca, exactly. I'm glad you let the people know that I am wearing HU is the Mecca. It is the real HU.
I love it. I love it. So I have a little cousin who is she's graduated from high school this year. She lives in Vegas and she is headed off to an HBCU. She's not going to Howard. She's going to be in Louisiana. But my question for you is, what type of, what advice would you give a college student who is headed off to a HBCU? Like, what advice would you give them in terms of making the most of their college experience?
One of the things I wish I would have done, and I would encourage anyone to get as involved with community as you can and the clubs. I'll be honest. So I did play softball while I was there. So I played softball. I played 1 year of softball because just some admin reasons. Not admin, I shouldn't say because I spent a second year at my eligibility. Basically, I could only play 1 year. Of one full year, basically, just to make it easy. I only had 1 year of sports eligibility. So I played 1 year there. But I wish I would have been more involved in more of the clubs.
Okay.
So I would encourage you or your cousin or whomever, to try to get involved as much as you can that your work schedule or your school schedule allows, right?
Okay.
You don't want to overwhelm yourself where you're not sticking to your studies because you have to go to this club meeting, right?
Let's remember why we're here.
Exactly. I would try to just immerse yourself in the culture as much as you can because you're not going to ever have an experience that you're going to have at that HBCU anywhere else. Don't shy away from experiencing the culture. That'd be the main thing I would say, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense too, because that's one of the things that's making the difference between the HBCU and a PWI. Mm-hmm. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I have a few questions. I'm going to back up to something that you mentioned earlier. You said that there was a Howard University alumni that had given you some tips on your podcast, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk a little bit about your podcast. So sure. I know you have a podcast, yes. The Human Side with Officer Jill.
Yes, ma'am. The Human Side with Officer Jill. That's it.
The Human Side with Officer Jill. And so I know that you're committed to improving the relationship between law enforcement and the community and rebuilding trust. And one of the things that you mentioned on your podcast is that, one of the ways that you do this is by having honest and impactful conversations. So I want you to tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So I would say over the past maybe couple years, obviously we were all exposed to what happened with George Floyd and things like that. That coupled with just looking at the history of law enforcement and minority community, not just Black community, right? Minority community, it has struggled, right? It has struggled.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have learned in my 15 years of experience is that when you are actually able to have just real normal conversations with people, their perspectives are shifted. And I've learned that on the job. Like, you talk and you explain things to people. And so many times I hear people say, "Oh, I never thought about it that way. Oh, I've never heard it explained that way." Right. Or I have said, "Oh, I've never seen it from that point of view. Thank you for sharing that with me." Right. And so because of that, I think we can actively, or another way that we can actively improve the relationship. So I decided, hey, why not go out and recreate these real conversations with people? I just randomly go to just places in public and I have these conversations with people.
Do you just run up on them with a mic?
I do it in a very cordial, in a manner that is not weird, right? I do ask for permission, but I one thing I will say, I don't tell them I'm a police officer.
Okay.
I don't tell them
ever at all.
Oh, I tell them
okay,
at the beginning. End. So in the beginning, I want them to just see me as another human being. Right? Hits the word human side, right?
Yeah.
Because when we take out the badge, when I take out the uniform, right, it allows them to be able just to be, and I won't say calm, but be just human and just talk to me. And we can talk about these issues that we have and hopefully try to get some understanding. And so I just go and I just ask them questions about law enforcement and just societal issues. And then at the end, I let them, I reveal to them that I'm actually a police officer. And most of them are like, "What? You're cool. I didn't know police officers aren't cool." I was like, "Sure I am. But I want you to see, I'm a police officer, but I'm also cool. I'm also human. I'm just another person, right?
Right.
And when I put on this badge, I'm the same person. When I put on this uniform, I'm the same person. I just have a different job description, if you will, right?
Right.
But so that's pretty much the gist of it. I go out and I just have these conversations, and my hope is that people who also watch it on YouTube or listen to it on the podcast, that they are experiencing that same perspective shift, or just that experience of seeing me outside of uniform, in hopes that they can see officers in that human aspect. And vice versa, right? I interview officers and we kind of exchange and dialogue and talk about all the different things, and people get to see us just having normal human conversations.
Yeah.
And they get to experience that. So that's really the basis of the show.
And you also interview other officers.
Yeah.
I saw the episode of, I don't remember the officer's name, but he was in Vegas.
Yes.
I was an officer in Vegas. And
yes.
That was such a good episode.
Thank you.
It really was. It was giving me Jamil Hill vibes. Like it was so good. You are the law enforcement what she is to sports. Like it was so good.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. And that's what I want people to experience. We were just having conversations that the officers have, and we described how, and if you haven't, please go and check it out. It actually is, I enjoyed the conversation because we're very candid and open about how we navigate the challenges of law enforcement. And he talks about how, and I don't know if you remember, he wasn't a fan of police before he came on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he was not a fan. We had some conversations before when I was actually in law enforcement and he wasn't. So, you guys feel free to go check it out.
Yes.
As he explains what changed his perspective into how he viewed police and stuff. So,
yeah, I'm gonna put the link to that episode in with the show notes so that people can find it easily.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about students and interacting with the police. Sure. Because academic survival, we want them to survive.
Yeah.
The academics, we want them to survive. Interactions with police officers, we want them to survive. Just life on campus, because sometimes campuses can be dangerous. So
yeah, sure.
So let's start off with like an incident. So if a student is approached by a police officer, either on or off campus, what should they keep in mind to help it be a safe and respectful interaction?
I think a lot of the same, or the awareness that they need to have, is the same that you would have if you weren't a student, right? Because you have the same rights, essentially, right? As a a person in America, everyone has rights, right? When they come to interacting with law enforcement, there are some changes or some differences when it comes to what type of school it is, right? So because some private schools, their law enforcement officers only have certain arresting capabilities while they're on duty. Private schools,
Oh,
not all of
okay.
them have that, right?
Okay.
And then some can have that same, at least in California, peace officers can arrest someone even they're off duty. That's just something, just a little note. But I think the same thing that need to be aware of that you would if you weren't on campus, right? Know your rights. The basic Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you anything you say can and will
And
be used
will.
against you. It absolutely will be used against you in the court of law, right? Know those basic rights. They still apply to you whether you're on campus or off campus. Another element for, let's say, most colleges have their own school police. So
Mhm.
usually they're enforcing not only just regular laws, but they're usually enforcing some school policies, right? Where your
Okay.
local law enforcement, they're not going to be doing that, right? Not
Okay.
usually.
Okay.
So that may be the only slight difference. So know when if you're violating a potential school policy, right?
Got it.
And what that gives the officers the right to do. I would encourage, and like I always encourage anyone who comes into contact with law enforcement, be respectful, right? You're going to get what you give off. And I think
Mhm.
that's just a natural thing. You know, if you are responding aggressively, you know, and bringing conflict, you're
Mhm.
probably going to encourage that same response, you know. And so I would say the same things that you would do in an outside of a school setting, do them
Mhm.
in the school setting when you're encountering
Okay.
law enforcement.
Okay. I remember, I think I may have told this story before on a different episode, but I work with an individual who's prior Secret Service. And one of the tips that he gave me was, if you're in a car and you're being pulled over,
Mm-hmm.
like put all your windows down.
Yes.
Like, especially if you have tinted windows, just put all your windows down.
Yeah.
And do what you can to kind of like make the officer a little bit more at ease as he's approaching your vehicle.
Yes.
As he or she is approaching your vehicle.
Yes, absolutely. That is an awesome tip. And I would also say one of the things that we are constantly aware of are people's hands.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Hands are the mechanism that hold weapons. Because they're the mechanism that hold weapons, we know that weapons hurt people, right?
Yeah.
So we go to the basics. I need to see your hands. You ever hear officers say that a lot? Let me see your hands. Because I know that as long as I see your hands, there's nothing in them. There's that threat at least has been eliminated.
Yeah.
Right. And so I would be mindful of where you're placing your hands when you're encountering the police. Have them in a visible place. You know, don't put them behind your back. Don't, you know what I mean? Because now I think, what are you hiding?
Yeah.
Is there a weapon back there? Right. That until I see that your hands are clear, I need to make sure that they are no longer a threat to me. So I think that's another good tip, along with also getting stopped. Definitely roll down your windows. It just makes it easier. I don't know if you saw recently this past week. Did you see that shooting with officers at a traffic stop? Thank God they were protected. Officers in LA, it was a traffic stop. And before they can even put the car in park, the suspect with like a high-powered machine, it sounded like a machine gun or rifle, shot through the back windshield. Multiple shots, right? To the point where the officer's car, they couldn't even get out the car fast enough. Thank God they survived and they got away for that night, but it's been like a week. It was like maybe a week or two ago, and he's in custody now. They found the guy. But
Okay.
yeah, it's traffic stops are very scary for officers, and so rolling down the window definitely helps for those particular reasons. We can see who's in the car, what's going on, and things like that. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, that absolutely is. How should students handle a situation if they feel they are being treated unfairly by a police officer?
Oh, and you know what? One thing I like to tell people is always comply. I know people don't like to hear that, right? Because when you feel like you're being mistreated, you want to say something, right? And I get it. I 100% get that. I felt that way before I got hired, right? You want to say something. However, there are systems, believe it or not, there are systems that are set up for you to be able to report things like this in a manner where it's taken care of. I want to encourage you, do not physically fight, because that will add so much more. If let's say you had a valid claim, that's going to be out the window now. You know what I mean? Because now you progressed it into a crime, you know? So I want to encourage people, don't fight. Don't physically fight. Comply. Make note of what you are seeing, right? So that you can explain that in detail when you do report it. Make note of who's there, right? Of all the people that are involved, right?
Yeah.
And nowadays, everyone has body cams pretty much, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's very difficult for officers to try to lie that something happened. You know what I mean? Now, to say that they don't do it, I'm not going to say that. There's no way I'm going to say that, because unfortunately there are bad apples in this field, and it's not like any other field. There's bad apples in every single profession, right? But just make, I would say, visible note of what you see and how you're feeling, right? When the situation is over, you can always ask. One, you can always ask for a supervisor. There's never a time where you can't ask for a supervisor. Ask for a supervisor.
Wow. Okay.
Ask for a sergeant.
I never would have thought of that. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. If you feel like you're being mistreated, this officer is violating your rights, they stopped you for the wrong reasons, whatever the case may be, ask for a supervisor. I can tell, I know what my agency, when someone asks for a supervisor, we shall, meaning shall is like the holy grail of
Yes.
of policing. You must do that.
Yes.
Right. That's a violation, you know? I mean, like I said, you can't lie about it because it's on camera, right? So ask for a supervisor, right? Ask for a supervisor, so at least that person can come in to kind of help navigate that situation. One of the biggest things, report it. Every agency has a way in which you can report that you feel like you've been mistreated. And that's when now you take note of all the things that you saw that they did, and you write it down or explain that to their superior, to the supervisor that is more than likely taking that complaint. You know, there's a process in place for that. So it doesn't just, and I can speak for my agency, I can tell you that we take every single complaint, literally. Whether it's true or false, we take them at least. We take them, and they're going to be investigated, and it's not just going to be swept under the rug. So you do have resources if you feel like you've been mistreated, but just do not fight. Do not physically fight. It makes it, it makes it worse.
Yeah.
It makes it worse, whatever the situation is.
Okay. So obviously do not fight. Now let's transition a little bit to personal safety for students who are on campus. Are there any safety tips that you would want to share with students who perhaps need to walk alone at night?
Yes, absolutely. You know, one of the go ahead.
I was going to say, I was talking to my cousin, the one who's getting ready to go to college, about this, and she was like, yeah, don't walk alone. She's like, don't do it.
Listen, don't walk alone on outside of college.
But yeah, is there any, what are some, like, so let's get into like personal safety tips. Like, so at night, like what's your advice to students walking on campus at night?
I love that. Absolutely have the buddy system. 100%. I think one of the challenges on college campuses are sexual assaults, right? So we just have to be honest about that. And a big contributing factor is alcohol, right? Which lives on college campuses, right? And so those two things go together. And so it does happen. I would say, one, be mindful of when you're at parties where you're setting your drinks down. If you set it down at all, right? Be mindful what you are drinking and who you're getting it from. Right? These are some important things to keep in mind, right? You can't get rid of alcohol on college campuses. Unfortunately, it's a part of that quote unquote experience for some people, right? For most people. And so just be mindful of that, right? Definitely walk or try to find a way to walk with someone. Know what resources are available to you on that campus. Most college campuses have resources available, right? Like they have, I don't have a specific term, but they have like groups that will drive you home. You know, there's like special numbers that you can call or text, and they show up on a golf cart, right? And they take you home.
Yes. I remember it was new when I was in college, but they were installing like places where you could like push a button, like it's a well-lit area, you can push a button and a campus safety person can come to you and escort you where you need to go.
Yes, they actually had that on my campus too. I was going to mention that. They usually have, like you said, like a little pole and it's lit, and you can just press the button and an operator will come on and they'll send someone, right? The good thing about having campus police is that that's their only job, is campus, right? It's not like local authority where they're all over the city, right? And so you do have access to that. When you get to your campus, I would say go to the campus police. Ask them, hey, what resources are available to me in order to keep me safe? And I
You know
guarantee
what?
you
That's
they'll have,
really good.
they'll tell you
That's really
exactly what they provide.
Yeah, that's really good to like to just start there. Like when you get to campus, because so I had this I have this thing that I do when I check into a hotel.
Okay.
First thing I do, okay, I check into a hotel. I go into my room.
Okay.
I set my stuff down, and then I immediately leave and find all the emergency exits.
Wow.
From my floor, find the
Nice.
emergency exits, but also I don't just find them. I count how many doors I have to pass to get to that exit. Because if there's a fire, you're going to be on the floor. You need to know how far you need to
Yes.
crawl in order to get to your exit. So yeah,
Listen.
I mean, I drop my stuff. I find where's the nearest exit and how many doors do I need to pass in order to get there? Like, what does the floor look like? Because
Look at that criminal justice. Look at that criminal justice major coming out. Dude, I'm gonna start doing this in my check-ins.
because you don't want to find out in the time of a crisis that,
True.
guess what? That
No,
door
you're
is
right.
locked. Or you thought it says emergency exit, but you know what? It leads to a hallway, and it's like, I don't know how many floors down, or stairs to nowhere, right? Or it's similar to when I'm on a plane, right? They say like find your nearest emergency exit. It might be behind you. Yeah.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And that's just it. Like and that's when you go to the school police. That's where you create your plan. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Planning is huge in law enforcement. That's everything we do. We have a plan for everything, and it does help because you said it exactly. You know what to do when that time arrives.
You know what to do when that time arrives. Where I work there, we have a law enforcement component. And I remember when they offered us up an opportunity to, like, everyone has to go through this run, hide, fight, active shooter training. But, we were also given an opportunity to, would you like me to come to your office and give you a personal plan? If you were in your office, where should you hide?
Wow.
If you have to,
That's
good. So I know, and we have drills regularly, so we have to know how. We had a major incident where we had an employee get killed.
Oh no.
And ever since then, we have our emergency evacuation drills. But as far as, going on campus and having that initial conversation with law enforcement, because I always think that it's good to know the people that you need to know.
Yes.
And so it's great to meet, because campuses are small enough. It's good to know the local law enforcement community that's on campus before you need them. So not a bad idea to go there. Just, introduce yourself. And then as far as the campus areas where there's lighting and those buttons where you can push to summons help, or summons an escort to your vehicle or to your back to your dorm, knowing where those are as well.
Yeah. And you know what? One of my coworkers, he was planning his daughter was going to college. So one of the things that they did, they actually researched, the crime in the area, right? Because most colleges, they're surrounded by a community of some sort, right? And so you can kind of learn, hey, this is some of the things, and it actually helped them make the decision of where their daughter was going to go to school based on the type of crimes. You can't get away from crime. Unfortunately, it's a part of society, right? But you can learn how to mitigate it, manage it, right? And navigate it, I should say. And so, it's all part of the planning process, I think. No, don't go on there blind, though. Don't go on there and just say you're going to figure out the night that you're drinking. Now you need to figure out what's going on. You're not thinking clearly, right? Because you're you're intoxicated, right? So I think that's probably the biggest thing I would encourage people to do. Go to the actual campus police station and ask them, hey, what services are available? What do you provide? What can I do if this happens or whatever, right? And they'll bring out the whole list, because that's their job. is that campus. That's their responsibility.
Yeah, so, and then even like finding out if they offer any kind of like self-defense.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
courses or
for sure.
All right,
or learn the basics for yourself.
Yeah, right? That's true too. Why true.
Not? YouTube University teach you anything you need to know.
We love that. We love us some YouTube University. So, how about any tips for like cyber cyber safety, not cyber security, but
Ooh.
cyber safe, like online, people like to
Dating.
oh,
OMG, right?
okay.
The internet, I love the internet, okay? But I hate the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all know that. It is so beneficial to life, but it can be very dangerous to life.
Yeah.
We obviously dating online is a thing. It's unfortunate. It's and I don't say unfortunate because sometimes it can be a great thing. You hear about people meeting the love of their life online, right? But you have
Right.
to also be mindful because unfortunately, it's also a place where a lot of scammers live and they'll pose as someone else. I
Yeah.
think dating is a big one. Be mindful of who you are talking to. Know who you're. If you meet someone online and they claim to be a student at the school or whatever, or maybe they're not, I would say have a face-to-face FaceTime conversation, not in person, I should say, a
Yeah.
digital
Okay, got it.
FaceTime,
Virtual.
a virtual, there you go, virtual conversation so you can confirm that they are who they say they are. I think that's
Okay.
the first most important thing you need to do because it could be
Okay.
someone in anywhere across the
Yeah.
country who is posing as someone else. And there's been so many scams where people lose thousands and thousands of dollars from
Yes.
online dating. Not only that, yes, online dating does that, unfortunately. And also just and violence, right? Or make
Yeah.
sure that that person, I wouldn't meet anyone for the first time outside of a public place, right? Don't ask to meet them at night, at a park.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Go to
Yeah.
a coffee shop in the middle of the day, right? Because then someone can see you with them, and then after you have that conversation, you can determine, okay, maybe this is the person, this is the
Yeah.
same person that I've been speaking to, and so forth.
I always think it's important to remember when you're posting videos of where you are, being mindful of, maybe not posting
Yeah.
that where you are
Where you live.
while you're while you're
Right.
still there, or
Yeah.
while you're still there,
Yeah.
like come back
Yeah.
home and then you can post what you did for the day, but not
Yes.
necessarily advertising your every
Yeah.
move, where if somebody
Absolutely.
is watching you, they're like, oh, they're not home right now, but I can be waiting for
Yep.
them when they get back.
Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking. If you're going on a trip, I know everyone wants to show we went here, we went there. Do all your footage when you get home and you're actually there, and then post it. Right? You don't
Yep.
have to actually do it when you're gone.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Yeah, you're not an on location reporter that needs to go live, right?
Yes, it's very important, and I think it's good that you brought it up. That's very important. You want to be mindful of what you're posting. If you're in college campus, what dorm you're living in, right? Be mindful of that. I know you want to show that off, and or just share that with whomever, your followers, your friends, whomever. But unfortunately, people who commit crimes like that, they are paying attention to things
Yes.
that you are doing, and they're becoming more sophisticated. They are changing just like we are changing, right? They're changing like society. They're, as the internet and society upgrades, guess what? Unfortunately, criminals
Yes.
upgrade too. And
Yes.
so be mindful of that for sure.
They have all the same tools.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
we've seen an uptick in those type of crimes, cyber crimes for sure. Our cyber guys and gals are definitely very busy.
Yeah. As we get ready to wrap things up, is there any advice you want to give or any last minute statement you want to make, either about Howard University or the HBCU experience or law enforcement? Any final closing remarks, anything that I missed?
I don't think you missed anything. I want to say thank you, first of all, for the
Absolutely.
conversation. I appreciate you for sure. Yeah, I think I love your show. When it comes as far as HBCUs, consider it. I want to tell people to consider it. I know it may not have, I guess, in American society, it may not have, may not be the Harvard or the Yale, right? The Ivy League that maybe some people may look for, but it's a very unique and beneficial experience that you will not receive anywhere else.
Okay.
And encourage everyone to say hi to the police when you see us.
All right.
We're a lot
I love
nicer
it.
than you think. I promise. Don't let the badge and the uniform and everything scare you. I can tell you from personal experience, we are just like you.
All right.
So
say hi to the police when you see them. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna say,
please
hey,
do.
officer. Okay.
There you go. Hey, officer.
All right. Well, Officer Jill, thank you so much for coming to the
sure.
Academic Survival Podcast. I know that you have given us so many good tips and so many awesome nuggets on HBCUs and interacting with the police. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. You guys go check out my podcast. I'm on YouTube. I am on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
And I'm going to make sure that I drop the links.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you so much.
That's it for today on Academic Survival. If you want to share your story on how you survived your freshman year of college, you can reach me at info@chandralmcdonald.com. We'll be back next week with more ways to survive your academic journey. Until then, happy studying.